Hi guys, welcome to my What is NLP series. So, lots of people have been asking me about NLP recently. So, I wanted to make NLP as easy to understand as possible. So, you may hear me talk about it a lot, but do you actually know the ins and outs of what it really is? So, I wanted to try and break this down for people. The first part is on what is NLP. So it is a really powerful approach. What we do in NLP is it allows us to understand the mind. And once we understand that, it gives us tools to be able to change that for people, in turn, changing their behavior and creating lasting personal transformation. So the actual term is Neuro Linguistics Programming, but as that can be quite a mouthful, it is known as NLP. So essentially, it's a study of how our thoughts, language, and behaviour interact to shape our experiences of the world. So if you've heard me talk before or you've ever spoken to me about NLP, I will often talk about what your internal representation is or what is going on for you internally. Because ultimately, what happens is the beliefs we hold, the experiences that we have had create internal representations, and ultimately that is what shapes how we live our life, how we view things, how we see things. So what it does, it gives NLP gives us the practical tools to change the patterns that people hold. And those patterns often are holding us back. So I wouldn't necessarily change a pattern for somebody if it was positive. Because we all want to be able to live life easily, excuse me. But for those patterns that actually are quite limiting and that are holding us back, NLP allows us to install new positive patterns to allow people to move forward. So it offers a framework for understanding how people create their own reality and how they can change that if it isn't working in a way that is positive for them. So just to break it down even further, so you've got neuro, which is the N. So neuro refers to the mind and the nervous system. So that's about how we process information through our senses. So again, what we see, hear, feel, smell, and taste. And when I say hear, it's also not just about what you hear from the external world. It's also that inner talk within ourselves. So that plays a huge part in the beliefs that we have, how we live our lives. So your brain is constantly filtering millions of bits of information, and based on what our filters are, based on the beliefs that we have, we quickly fit that into a box. Because if you think about trying to filter millions of pieces of information, if you were to sit there all day and be like, okay, well, there's this and there's this and there's this, oh, what do I do with this? You would get nothing else done. There would not be enough hours in the day. So your unconscious mind does that extremely quickly for you. So once we have beliefs and those limitations that are in place, we filter that so quickly. That is the neuro part of NLP. There's then the L, which is linguistics. So that refers to language. Again, like I said earlier, both the words that we use and the internal dialogue for ourselves. Now, lots of people don't pay a lot of attention to that. And we can miss lots of things when we don't pay attention to our internal dialogue, because for lots of people, that can be quite a critical voice. So we want to make sure that that voice is positive. So language doesn't just describe reality, it actually shapes it. So again, those differences there from saying I failed. So if you're constantly, oh, well, I was shit at that and I failed at that, I'm rubbish, rather than, okay, well, that didn't go to plan, but I have learned so much from that and I'm going to take that and move forward with that. It completely changes, one, how you feel. So the difference between saying I'm a failure and I failed at this and wow, look at what I've learned, the difference in how you feel with that is huge. And again, that can impact the next step that you're going to take. Because if you are feeling more positive, the outcome, the next step is going to be a lot more positive than if you are sitting there thinking, well, I'm a failure and I was rubbish at that. And the likelihood of you then taking action is going to be more minimal than if you had a positive internal dialogue. So programming, that refers to our habitual patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving. So over time, we develop mental and emotional programs and they run automatically. So you don't have control over those. simple things like going to buy something in a shop, you will run an internal, let's say, buying strategy. If you were going to go buy something, that would run so quickly that have you ever been in a shop where you've picked something up and thought, oh, and then you put it down, you walk out, you're not really sure why you didn't necessarily buy it, you just weren't feeling like buying it. That's because you have run a program that is automatic. Now that happens throughout our everyday life with most things that we do. So 95% of what we do is unconscious. So yeah, over time we develop these programs. They run automatically, again, like fear responses, confidence levels, and procrastination habits. So what we do in NLP, it is about recognizing those patterns and reprogramming the ones that aren't serving us. So in the simple terms, it's NLP is the study of how our mind, so neuro, language, and patterns programs interact to create our own life experiences. So the core idea of NLP. So yeah, the core idea of NLP, at its heart, NLP is based on a simple but powerful premise. So your experience of reality is not reality itself, but our internal map of it. So this is quite similar to people have probably heard me say before, feelings aren't your reality. So what is going on, and I was talking about this morning, let's say there's an experience. The experience itself doesn't change, but it's the meaning that you add to it. And two people can go through exactly the same experience and will respond differently. So two people go through the same event, yet experience that completely differently, because we don't respond to the world as it is happening. We respond to the meaning that we give it. So for example, someone could interpret a challenge, or like I said earlier, a failure, as proof you're not good enough, as proof you're a failure, and then feel really discouraged or withdrawn from the situation and not want to push themselves forward. Like, failure can be a huge thing for people, and that can add to those feelings of not being good enough, not being worthy. Whereas other people can interpret the same challenge as feedback and, okay, how am I going to grow from this? How am I going to use this to push myself forward, and really put themselves in a much better position? So yeah, you want to be that person who, if something doesn't go to plan, because you can have all the plans in the world, but as we know, things don't always go to plan. And again, just another great example of this morning, I went for a walk, and currently I'm in a boot due to an injury, and somebody said to me, okay, what happened to your foot? We were chatting about that, and then added, but I bumped into them again. They said to me, I love that this is not stopping you. I respect it. It's like, okay. Now someone else is going to have a completely different view of the fact that I was out walking in a boot. They're going to think I'm an absolute moron. Like, why are you out? Why are you not resting? Now, I had made a decision based on what I know about myself, what I can actually do at the minute. Now, those two people, it's the same situation, but they have a completely different filtering system. So they've looked at me, seen what looks like a woman walking around in a boot, and filtered that based on their own experiences, their own beliefs, their own interpretation. It's a projection of what is going on for them, based on what they see of me. They're projecting them, and I think that's a really powerful way to think about interactions with other people as well. I think that can bring a lot of comfort into your life, especially if you're going through something. If you can understand that people often project what is going on for them, rather than it being something inherent about you. So yeah, NLP can help us change the internal map that you have, the internal representation that you have to things, so that you respond to life in a more resourceful and empowering way, because you have all of the resources that you need within inside of you. NLP helps us bring those to the surface so that you can move forward. So the key principles in NLP, just some things that are useful for people to know. So the map is not the territory. So again, I've just said this before I moved on to this slide, but that means your perception is not reality. It's your interpretation of what is happening. So yeah, based on your experiences, beliefs, emotions, And NLP helps us question those filters and create more useful interpretations. And again, if I was in a session with someone and they were saying something to me, I would always be questioning their reality. So because that is their response to a stimuli, it's their response to the situation. Is that actually true? So if someone says, I always fail, or I'm always messing up. Okay, but is that fact? Is that true? Can you think of examples when you didn't fail? Can you think of examples when you were really successful? And once you start to break that down and then figure out what that internal representation is, then we're in a very, very good place to be able to change that as well. So people already have the resources that they need. So what we assume in NLP is that individuals already possess the internal resources required to succeed. So confidence, resilience, creativity. But what happens is those resources may not be activated or accessible because of maybe some trauma that you've experienced, some blocks that you've got. And again, if you've been through, let's say with presentation, you've been through a negative experience with presenting, you could have quite a significant block that we want to get removed so that you can go for it. So, yeah, through specific techniques, NLP helps people access and use those states intentionally. Mind and body are connected. And I am going to assume that there are a few people from the fitness world watching this, and you will have quite a thorough understanding of this, I would assume. But our thoughts affect our emotions, which affect our physiology, and vice versa. So, for example, if you're sitting in a slouched position, low energy, the likelihood is you're thinking is going to be more negative. Again, if you are, I'm going to go back to presenting, but if you get up to do something and you're really nervous and you're worrying about everyone else's judgment, you're not going to be standing tall. You're not going to be feeling good. When you look at those negative emotions, people tend to be like, if you think about someone who's sad or who, they tend to protect themselves. Your body language seems to be more curved in on yourself. Whereas when you're confident, you're in an upright position. And again, you're feeling confident in terms of your physiology, and that can lead to a much more empowering mindset. I mean, there's been studies done on, hasn't there, standing in the power pose, before you're doing something. Again, all of those things interlinked. So NLP teaches us how to shift state quickly by changing physiology, focus, and language. So again, quite often, and I will go into this further in some of the other presentations, but it's what we call a state. You end up in a state. Now, if you find yourself in a state where you're feeling quite tense and you're feeling quite frustrated and irritable and, again, negative emotions, changing your state. To change your state, a good way to do it is change your position, change your body, go do something, go for a walk, go, even humming. Humming has a really calming effect. So again, there's lots of things that you can do with that. And this is a hill I will die on, this next one. There is no failure, only feedback. If you can get yourself in a position where you are going to view outcomes as success, when you can move away from this is success or this is failure and reframe them as feedback. So yes, take those emotions from when you succeed. I want people to experience that, and I want people to be really proud of themselves for that. What we find is people go, right, they get somewhere and then they get where they want to go. They don't actually take the time to sit and actually feel it, be really proud of themselves for that, and giving themselves more and more evidence that they need, that they're successful and that they're brilliant, they're perfect, as I like to say about myself. But when things go wrong, people sit in that for a lot longer and they stew on that. So when you can create psychological flexibility and resilience to move through that, take the highs with the lows and trust yourself enough that when you're in that low, you're going to get through that. Or when something doesn't go to plan, it's feedback. Because every really successful person failed on the way to the top. So I don't know anyone who got there first time or didn't go through some sort of hardship. The difference is people who go, okay, this went wrong. What do I need to learn from this? And how am I moving forward from this? So every result becomes useful information for improvement rather than a personal judgment against yourself, and using that to beat yourself up and to be criticizing yourself. And again, putting yourself in that negative thinking, which then brings around, if we link it back to the mind and body, brings about that low energy, the slouched posture. Again, all negative things. We want to be bringing about real positive change for people. So how NLP works in practice sort of focuses on identifying patterns in 3 key areas. So the thoughts, what you are saying about yourself internally. And again, I would look at that in terms of other people. So I will often say to people, the thing that stings when someone else says it to you, you want to pay attention to that, because that will show you where you hold some form of belief about yourself. So what you say about yourself internally, the language that you use, so how you speak about experiences, how you speak about yourself, really we want to change that dialogue for people so it's positive. And again, behavior, the actions and reactions that follow. So that's the 3 kind of main areas where we want to look at, okay, how do we change this? What is working? Where are you struggling the most, and how can we help you move forward from that? So by changing any one of these, you influence the others. So again, just when you change your self-talk, your confidence improves, your behavior becomes more assertive, the change in your body language, the emotional state shifts, thoughts become more positive. So, and this is something that we actually do deliberately. We want to change those things for people. So common NLP applications. So it's used across many fields. So something that I don't really touch on, but NLP can be used inside of big organizations with sales and lots of things like that, because there's a whole kind of other area in terms of how NLP can help influence sales, because of how we understand how people respond to certain things. But it's used across many fields, so coaching and I suppose therapy. So just to highlight, it isn't, you're not classed as a therapist. We're not sitting going over, all of the things that have happened in your life. And again, I'll come on to how we do that in a different presentation. But yeah, for coaching, leadership and communication, sports performance, which is a huge one for me, in terms of athlete mindset, the people who push themselves to be the best, also transitioning out of sport. There's a huge mindset role that play within that. Confidence building, lots of people will say, I just want to be more confident. So again, building somebody's confidence through NLP is huge. For me, my personal opinion, when you start to change the negative or limiting beliefs that you hold about yourself, your confidence grows naturally. When you're removing the shit, if you like, your confidence as a person naturally grows. Emotional regulation, because you're not being triggered in the same way. Habit change, and overcoming fears and limiting beliefs. So, for example, athletes use NLP visualization to mentally rehearse success. And there's a fantastic, I don't know if anybody has seen it, but there is a fantastic reel that has been going around. It says something like, on positive self-talk, positive affirmations are rubbish, visualizations rubbish, and it shows you each time the athletes who most people know doing all of those things beforehand. And there was actually a study done in basketball around, they had a core group practice the shot, they had a core group visualize making the shot, and they had people do nothing. And the difference between people who practice and people who visualized, there wasn't that much in it. Both of them became more successful ultimately and made the shot. So yeah, and coaches use NLP questioning to help clients break limiting beliefs and create empowering ones. So it's actually a very, very versatile application, really, and can be used for lots of different things. So why it actually matters. So NLP, for me, NLP matters because, one, it changed my life, and two, I feel so privileged to be able to use this to be able to change other people's lives. And when you watch somebody go through an NLP transformation and remove those negative blocks from their life and become a happier person who goes after what they want, who feels really confident doing it, who will say what they're thinking, who will have boundaries. It's such a powerful place to watch somebody. It's so just honestly amazing to watch someone go through that, or to watch someone start a business. And yeah, it is fantastic. So yeah, but it matters because it gives us practical understanding of how change actually happens. And then when you see that, it's just amazing. So most people try to change behavior without changing internal patterns, which works for a period, but your unconscious mind will always take you back to what it believes to be true. And just to say about the unconscious mind, which again, I am going to do a whole presentation on it, but it wants to protect you. So it's not doing this to make your life more difficult. It is trying to protect you, and that is based on previous experiences. What NLP does, it goes much deeper. So it works at the root level: beliefs, identity, emotion, mental strategies. So how we can reprogram at that deep level, so that then becomes an unconscious program, so that all of the good stuff, all of the positive stuff, all the stuff you want to do, that then becomes your automatic strategy that you're running. When those internal patterns shift, external results naturally follow. Instead of trying to force willpower, it teaches alignment between mindset, language, and action. So if you think about how frequently you're running patterns now, and if there are certain areas in your life where you're thinking, oh, I want to do this differently, and I've tried everything and I've been doing this, again, that's such a natural pattern for you. So if you think about it in the sense of, once you change that internal representation, you're then running something completely different. So, in summary, Neuro Linguistics Programming is the study of how our mind, language, and behavioural patterns interact to create our experiences of life. So, it teaches us our perception shapes our reality, our language influences our emotions and behaviour, and our patterns can be changed with the right tool. Like there is light if you're in a bit of a dark tunnel at the moment, there's light at the end of that. If you're feeling quite stuck and quite frustrated, then NLP is a fantastic tool for you. Also, if you're somebody who is also very successful, feeling really good, but there's that next level to you, you're not quite sure how to push yourself through that, you're not quite sure why you're holding yourself back from taking yourself to that next level, then again, it's a very, very useful tool. Also, if you're a chronic people pleaser. But ultimately, NLP is about gaining conscious control over how we think, feel, and act, so we can become more confident, resilient, and intentional in every area of our life. So you can use this in any area of your life. And when we change our internal program, we change the results that we create externally. And that's just fantastic. So yeah, any questions, let me know, and thank you.